Hello and welcome to another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. I'm your host, Chad Marshak. The program today is entitled Plyometrics, and plyometrics are often misunderstood, and we're hopefully going to debunk some of the myths that might exist out there today and help you understand better what plyometrics actually are and how to use them in your training program. I'd like to welcome Ryan Tosh to the program today.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Ryan. Ryan actually works here at Body Symmetry. He's been here for about 7-8 months now. Many of you who are watching the program probably know Ryan from Athletic Care. He used to be the program director of the Frapure Acceleration Program at Athletic Care on South 6th Street. He's working here at Body Symmetry now, seeing a lot of different types of individuals, specializes in working with athletes as well. So Ryan, plyometrics, there's a lot of information out there. I know personally, I've used plyometrics for years, varying degrees. And after watching you over the last 6, 7, 8 months work with a lot of different athletes, our techniques are slightly different from a training perspective. And I am convinced that you know a lot more about plyometrics than me. And so hopefully you can share with me and our audience today and enlighten us on what plyometrics are and how to incorporate them in your training program.
Well, there's definitely a lot of different information out there about plyometrics. You'll hear wide ranges of programs that make various claims as to increasing your vertical jump by 12 inches and some very kind of unreasonable expectations. But basically what plyometrics are specific drills that are designed to make you more explosive. That's what they are, and that's what they're designed to do. How plyometrics work is they're a manipulation of your nervous system. There's a concept called the stretch shortening cycle that when you stretch a muscle, it creates and stores energy.
Stores energy, right.
And then when you follow that stretch up with a contraction, that energy is then released in elastic type of energy that makes you run faster, jump higher.
Right. Well, we had a ball over here, and I really like this analogy here that you gave me a minute ago.
The analogy is if you just tap your finger on something, it goes at a certain speed. But if we pull it back and stretch it, you see how our finger snaps down quicker. That is what the stretch shortening cycle is. We stretch that muscle, the muscles in my finger are creating and storing energy. When I let go and contract it, it snaps down rapidly. That's what the stretch shortening cycle is. As Chad mentioned, there's a lot of debate as to whether plyometrics are safe. Unfortunately, a lot of coaches and trainers have misused plyometrics, and in some circles they've taken a bad rap. A lot of physicians will not necessarily recommend plyometrics because they see a lot of people that were injured while doing plyometrics. And basically, in my opinion, plyometrics are completely safe if they're implemented properly, and that's where the problems arise. More often than not,
a lot of people are doing too much too soon.
Yes.
You know, they don't understand where it fits in the training program.
They'll read a program in some magazine that some professional athlete is doing these types of exercises and this number of jumps, and they just jump right in and try to do the exact same thing. And for a younger athlete, it's just too much too soon.
Right.
And a lot of times inappropriate exercises.
And there are a lot of coaches out there that I think are misinformed. You know, we work with so many athletes in the community, amongst other people as well. But the athletes that we see that are working out at the various high schools in the community, a lot of the coaches really need to understand how to apply this and incorporate these types of drills in the program. We're going to give you all kinds of demonstrations, talk about the different levels of plyometrics, and how to progress, like Ryan was saying at the beginning of the program. You know, plyometrics are a tool. We have so many tools available to us as, you know, professional fitness trainers. And again, plyometrics are a tool in the toolbox. When you use them is going to depend on the athlete, when that athlete is ready for those particular drills or whatever the application might be, or what's the goal, what's the end in mind. You know, people need to begin with the end in mind, the end goal in mind, and how to, you know, again, incorporate them in when and where.
Well, the goal obviously is to increase your ability to produce power, to produce power output. Now, I mean, plyometrics are a tool, and they've been shown to do that. But as we were talking earlier, you can put a good tool in the wrong hands. You wouldn't give your keys to the car to your 10-year-old and let him drive around. I mean, it's not the car that's bad, it's you giving the keys to your 10-year-old and expecting them to drive around and not hurt someone or something.
Right.
So the goal, by using these drills, is to increase power output. Now, what we want to do is, before you can produce force, before you can run fast, jump high, you have to be able to control your body weight, control, decelerate, absorb force that you put into it first.
Right.
Which kind of leads us into the rules of plyometrics. Plyometrics, there are so many rules, like you have to be able to squat so much of your body weight, some arbitrary numbers that people have come up with, and basically I have simplified it down to three things. The first thing being, you should jump and land in the exact same position.
Okay.
And good plyometrics are quiet plyometrics. If they're really loud, that means you have a force absorbing problem. You're not absorbing force properly. And the third thing, just to reiterate, you have to be able to absorb force before you can produce it. If you can't absorb it, you can't produce it optimally without risking an injury.
Load before you unload.
Absolutely. What we're going to do is introduce you to a 12-week plyometric progression. And you may ask, why 12 weeks? This 12-week progression is something that I've found has, from an injury prevention standpoint, has been fantastic. Whenever I've tried to rush or skip steps in this progression, we come up with things like patella tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, those type of overuse type of injuries. I like the 12 weeks because it allows the tendons in your lower body or whatever part we're using to adapt to the stress we're putting on. So 12 weeks, I have found, is kind of an optimal number to prepare someone for that. So what we've got, level 1 will be roughly 3 weeks. Now for some athletes it may be more than 3 weeks, but I mean, if it's a professional athlete or a 10-year-old, we're going to start them at the same level because we want their tendons to adapt. So level 1 type of jumps are jumping up to an implement such as a box. So I'm going to have Chad demonstrate. We're going to start in the position we start is the position we want to land in at the top. So we're slightly bent, feet are flat. I'm going to have Chad jump up to the box, stick the landing, and hold that position. Okay, that's good. He's pretty much in the same position he started. He landed quiet. The other things we're looking at specifically are knee position. We don't want the knees to collapse inward, and we want the feet landing in a foot flat position. Now the weight, as far as weight distribution on your feet, it's about 60-40 weight toward the balls of your feet to the heel. So it's a pretty even distribution. We don't want to land up on our toes for a couple reasons. There's an injury component, putting a lot of excess stress on the Achilles tendon. Plus it's just inefficient as far as letting potential stored energy or that power leak out.
I have a question as far as gauging, for example, when we're doing box jumps, the height of the box. Now, for example, this is a 12-inch box. When do we need to use, how do you gauge that?
Basically, if you can't land on the box in the same position that you started the floor from, it's too high. You'll see a lot of people that will jump to a box and land really deep, deeper than what they started,
Right.
that's too high of a box. They need to go down
Okay.
a level. So
Okay.
that's how we gauge the height of the box.
Okay.
And now what we want to do with level 1 plyometrics is we want to not just focus on one type of jump. We want to do multi-planar type jumps, because we're going to jump forward, we're going to jump side to side, or we're going to do things that are kind of a rotational.
Rotation. Right.
We're also going to do those with 2 legs and also single leg.
Okay.
Now for the purpose of today, we may not have time to show you everything, but we're going to show you a little snippet
Okay.
of all of those things.
So a front plane jump or a lateral jump.
So a lateral jump. There you go. Perfect. That was good and quiet. The position that he started in was pretty much the position he landed in. Okay, that's perfect. Now we can also do that single leg. Okay, that's good. That is what I would call a medial jump, which there is a difference between a medial
And a lateral jump.
jump.
Medial's more to the midline of your body. Laterally is moving away from the midline.
Yeah, the medial jump would be the foot farthest from the box, jumping up to the box. A lateral jump would be the foot closest to the box,
So this way.
then jumping up to the box, yes. Although they look subtly different, there is a big difference in the load that it puts on your leg. So we'll want to incorporate all of that. And then lastly, kind of a multi-planar jump, is Chad, why don't you come over here, and we'll just do a single leg hop, but I want you to rotate 90 degrees with every jump.
So you want me to go where I'm here?
Actually, just to the floor.
Just to the floor? Oh, okay.
Yep.
I was doing something fancy though.
Yes, you were.
Up to the floor.
And again, what we're looking for is quiet jumps.
That's
Nice,
my knee, that's
stable-
loud.
Stable knee. Now we can progress from 90 degrees to 180. Obviously, these are much more challenging for Chad. Okay, all of these would be level 1 type of jumps, and we would stay in this progression for approximately 3 weeks. If the athlete isn't able to complete all of the jumps in level 1, they stay in level 1 until they're able to complete them. Level 2 would then be a barrier type of jump, where we're not just jumping up to a box, we're going to jump over a barrier.
Okay.
We have some hurdles set up. I'm going to have Chad do a double leg jump, stick the landing in between. Okay, as you see, he pretty much is a mirror image of how he started. He landed, his feet were quiet, his knees are in proper alignment. Go ahead and show, we'll do another one. Very good. Okay, on this last one, we can do this unilaterally as well. So we're going to do a single leg hop. And a little stick on the landing. So, again, that's a level 2 jump. We're jumping over a barrier for a single response. We don't want to go rapidly through the hurdles. He's capable of doing it, but his tendons, if he hasn't been doing any jump training or plyometric training, are not going to be ready to handle the load of multiple continuous jumping.
What's interesting, when you do a lot of these, you pick up muscle imbalances and postural issues and faulty movement patterns, especially when you're doing unilateral, single leg movements. Oftentimes people have, say, one leg that they like to jump off of. And again, these movements are for any sport that's out there, from volleyball to basketball to football to baseball, soccer to hockey. I mean, anything you can conceive of, even golf. A lot of these movements are going to have practical application to your particular sport.
Absolutely. If power is a requirement of your sport, plyometrics are going to help you. And pretty much every sport that I know of, short of distance running, has some power involved in it.
Right.
Even golf. Golf actually is a
Very powerful.
very powerful, explosive sport. Golfers could benefit greatly from appropriate plyometrics. Okay, level 3 jumps. So we've jumped to a box in level 1, we've jumped over a barrier in level 2. Now we're going to introduce actually what is a true plyometric, which is the switching from the stretch to the jump. And what I'm going to have you do is jump, take a small little gather jump, and then jump to the next small gather, jump and stick it on the end. Okay, very good. And what that does is introduces that switching, that eccentric to concentric switching, but not to the same level as a continuous rapid jump would that might overload the tendons if we do it out of progression. Okay, excellent. Okay, now keep in mind, just for time's sake, we're not showing all of the lateral
So the planes
multiplanar-
the front planes, if I wanted to go laterally,
Yes.
same thing. I need taller hurdles.
Any good plyometric program is going to include bilateral and unilateral jumping, as well as multiplanar jumping. Sports occur in many different planes. And
Bilateral, both
and-
directions.
Yes. To just train in one area, you'll be strong in that area, but it doesn't necessarily transfer over to the other planes. Okay, level 4. This is what most people think of when they think of plyometrics. We're just going to do a rapid jump to the end. Okay, now what I would ask you to do is on this very last jump, when you're at the end of the hurdles, stick
Stick
and
it?
stabilize
Okay,
at the very
okay.
end. Excellent. Now keep in mind that this type of jump is what most people think of when they think of plyometrics. We don't get to these type of jumps until about 9 weeks when progressed properly. Now where a lot of people fail is that they will go right into jumps like this
Right?
on day 1. And then, excuse me, after a week or 2 of doing this, that's when the things like patella tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, all that stuff starts popping up when you don't follow the proper progression.
I do have a question for you. From a safety standpoint, you just mentioned all the different problems that might pop up from patellar tendonitis to other issues. If a person hasn't really done anything, the important thing that I like to stress to people, everybody needs a baseline of fitness. It's so important. You're not going to take a 12-year-old kid and throw them right into this type of training, because oftentimes they're not going to have the stability, the strength, the balance, the wherewithal to execute a lot of these movements safely. So really, the introduction of a basic program that's going to address baseline needs to establish a good, healthy baseline of fitness is indicated before you do any of these drills.
Sure.
Would you be in agreement?
Yes. Now that's not to say that, 12 inches isn't the smallest box out there.
Absolutely.
We can get boxes as low as 4 inches and introduce a very small amount, maybe not initially, but certainly before we would start a formal progression. But a lot of the things that kids do on the playground, swinging on the monkey bars, jumping around, that puts a lot of stress through these little people's joints.
Right.
That plyometrics in a controlled setting of appropriate level will put less stress on their body than some of the activities they do on a day-to-day basis on the playground. So just to kind of wrap up here, as far as how you go about designing your program, we have the progression laid out, the 4 levels. As far as volume, how many jumps do you do in a day? I like to keep my volume pretty constant.
Okay.
Whether it's a beginner, whether it's an advanced athlete, I like to stick between 100 and 120 foot contacts a week.
Okay.
Now that takes into account if I'm working with an athlete twice a week, we're going to shoot for 50 contacts a workout. Excuse me.
Does that include any type of, whether it be bilateral with both feet contacting the ground or unilaterally, one foot at a time?
Yes, I include all contacts in the total number.
Okay.
Now when the athlete progresses and they're doing a lot of unilateral single leg jumping, we're probably closer to that 60 number than we are the 50.
Okay.
Assuming they're working out twice a week. Now, as far as frequency of workout goes, I think that you can do plyometrics up to 4 days a week, assuming you split your activities into linear type plyometrics where you're going straight ahead. You do a day of linear plyometrics, then your next day you can follow it up with lateral multiplanar
Right.
plyometrics. If you split it up that way, I think you can do 4 days a week, but keeping those contacts in 100 to 120.
Right.
So if you're doing 4 days a week, you're really only gonna do about 25
Right.
contacts a workout. Now, this doesn't include things like ladder drills that have a real small plyometric effect,
Right.
but not enough.
Jump rope.
Jumping rope, those
Right.
types of things we don't include in the number
Right.
of contacts. And as far as age goes, this kind of goes back to the safety issue that we've hit on a little bit. My personal belief, it's the belief of many coaches in the coaching community that think that plyometrics pretty much of all ages are okay, assuming the proper progression is followed. A progression much like what we presented today. Because like we said, jumping around on the playground, jumping off playground equipment onto the ground is going to put a lot more stress and load into the joints.
Gymnastics,
And-
figure skating,
Yeah.
very explosive type.
A lot of those sports that start when you're really young, gymnastics, figure skating, I mean, they're doing an incredible amount of explosive jumping at a really early age. It may or may not be in appropriate levels or an appropriate setting. And I think that's why you tend to see a lot of overuse injuries in those populations. But if a proper progression is followed, I think that it's safe for pretty much any age.
And if you have, I have a question regarding, say, elite level athletes, or say even high school guys or girls for that matter, and older, more advanced people that have been training for a while, playing in their respective sport for a while. When is it appropriate to add external resistance, an additional load, like a weight vest, or maybe holding a medicine ball, or adding dumbbells, or I've seen you do even some drills with a barbell or dumbbells where people are jumping with weights. When is that appropriate?
That is appropriate when I would lump that into a level 4.
Okay.
Obviously, the beginning of level 4 is a continuous jump with your body weight.
Okay.
Now, I will use external resistance in lower levels, but it still has to abide by the rules of that level.
Okay.
So level 1, jumping to a box, if I think that I want to give them more load in level 1, before we go on to level 2, then I may add a weighted vest
Right.
while they jump up to the box.
So for example, if I have a weighted vest and I'm going to throw this vest on my body, jump, obviously that's a far greater load than your own body weight. So the intensity is going to factor in if you're doing more level 4 type movements. Is your volume going to be as high?
I will keep my volume the same.
Same? Okay.
I just take into account that I'm increasing the intensity, so I may not add a lot of resisted jumping, but the same rules would apply. We very rarely do we ever jump down with a
Okay.
weighted vest. We will jump up to implements. We will do some continuous jumping loaded, like squat jumps,
Right.
things like that, where we get some external loading with the jumping, but it has to follow the progression.
Okay. Okay.
So we didn't really hit on intensity, but intensity has to abide by the same rules as everything else.
Okay. Okay. A lot of information out there, but really today our goal today was to introduce you to plyometric training, when to do it, the appropriate types of drills, and there's a lot of different things. I mean, you've got things like depth jumps where you're on a box, bounding drills too, that we really didn't touch on today, but these basic movement patterns, just with a very simple box, it's a 12-inch box, you can build this on your own. You can make some very inexpensive hurdles if you'd like out of PVC. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. That's always a big thing that I hit on. A lot of people spend way too much money on equipment that they don't need and won't eventually use. You can spend a few dollars on very inexpensive pieces of equipment and get a lot of bang for your buck, all right? You don't even have to build this. You can use a platform of some sort, or a stair, or something that's safe. The surface of these platforms need to be typically about 2 feet by 2 feet in order to safely land on them, all right? That's I think a good safety tip, if you will.
Landing surface is another thing we didn't really hit on. But typically you want to get a true plyometric effect, you want something with a small amount of cushion, not too much cushion. I see a lot of people promoting plyometrics in a sand pit.
Yeah.
And although it does have some benefits, power output is not a benefit of jumping out of sand. The sand, when you push your feet into it, it disperses, and that dispersion of the sand, it may as well be the energy coming out of your feet, because you're not able to jump and produce force out of something that's not a stable surface. So we're not advocating jumping strictly on concrete, but a nice padded surface, a carpeted surface
Would be appropriate.
is appropriate.
Shoes are another biggie. You know, I see a lot of kids that we work with come in with horrible shoes. Make sure your shoes are, you know, decent, relatively new. You know, some type of all-purpose tennis shoe is great. Lace your shoes up. I hate it when I see people do any type of exercise or movement where they're not lacing their shoes properly. Those shoes are a tool. You know, use them. All right. Don't come in and do any of these exercises, or even whatever sport you're playing. Lace up your shoes from the bottom up. All right. They shouldn't be loosey-goosey. Snug, not too tight.
And I think you hit on it, more like a court shoe as opposed to a running shoe. Running shoes give you great support front to back, but not so great side to side.
Exactly.
And if you're doing lateral plyometrics or multiplanar, they're not going to be supportive enough to accommodate what your activity is going to be.
Exactly. Ryan, a lot of information out there. I want to thank you very much for helping me out today.
You're welcome.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
We have an excellent program here at Body Symmetry. It's called Sport Specific Conditioning. It's for any individual really, but people that have a particular sport that they play, you have an opportunity to work with Ryan here, or Ryan O'Malley, who again is a baseball player for those of you who don't know, and Justin Knadler, another baseball player who recently signed with the Oakland A's. They're going to be here until the end of February. You have an opportunity to work with all three of these gentlemen. Feel free to check out the program details on our website at bodysymmetry.com. Also, we have a great website which is called freefitnessvideos.com. We have over 200 exercises. They're 2 to 3 minutes in length. We also post this particular program on our website. You can watch it 24/7. It's free. We don't ask for any information. You can hop on there, learn about fitness, learn about nutrition, learn about flexibility. We've got a lot of great information on there, so check it out for sure. Thanks again for joining me on another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. Until next time, I'm your host, Chad Marshak. Hey, Quinn and Rad.